Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Wilbur right.
Whoa! That's exact. Oh, we should have done that. I should have been Orville. Anyways.
Well, just kidding. It's Luke.
Thanks for clearing that up for us.
Didn't want to didn't want to scare anybody.
We're taking a look at the Wright Brothers, continuing our series of great inventors.
Did you know that it was originally spelled, fun fact, R-I-G-H-T, and they changed it?
Really?
No, I'm just making that up.
Oh, that would have been a fun fact. So we all know them as the people who first flew, right? We don't? Okay. There has to be some clarification on that one.
There does.
So it's all about how you define an airplane, which I didn't know that was something people debate, but here it is. So a plane has to be heavier than air, manned and powered, and has to be able to take off and land on its own power, and be able to roll, pitch, and yaw, which is three-axis control. And that three-axis control is really what set the Wright brothers apart from the rest of the wannabes out there. The wrong brothers, we'll call the rest of them.
I see what you did there.
Fun fact.
Shoot.
Some say that Gustav Whitehead might have been the first person to fly, but none of his machines that he built after his supposed flight in 1901 ever left the ground. So if you can't reproduce it, do you really believe that this guy created the first airplane?
This is kind of like he had a girlfriend in Canada that he met at camp, but you wouldn't know her.
Right, you wouldn't know her. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You nailed that.
The Wright brothers kind of had to deal with a lot of that stuff, too. Like
They did. A lot of haters. Haters going to hate Luke.
No one ever believed them they had to do all these crazy demonstrations we'll talk about. But I mean, it was pretty crazy. Like, no one believed them.
Yeah. So let's step back in time a little bit and talk about their childhood.
It was a pretty good one.
I thought it was a pretty good one.
Other than their mom dying of some typhoid.
Well,
other than that.
So Wilbur was actually the middle child of 5.
Mm-hmm.
They were from Millville, Indiana. His daddy was named Milton, and he was a bishop. And this means they moved all over the place.
A lot.
Like all over the country, spreading the good word, I
Wilbur
guess.
was born April 16th, 1867.
Thank you for that. His mama's name? Susan Catherine Corner. I'm guessing she was a stay-at-home mom with like the 5 kids because, 5 kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a kind of meh fun fact for you. His older brothers' names were Reuchlin, Reuchlin, and Lorin, Lorin.
Do you want another fun fact about their names?
Well, I'm just thinking they all had kind of weird names.
They had no middle names.
Oh, really?
Their father purposely gave them these very distinctive first names. Even the daughter, Catherine, kind of had Catherine, I guess, was kind of an eccentric name back then. None of them had middle names.
So that's interesting. Here's a question for you.
Shoot.
Which name is worse, Orville or Wilbur? Because they're both really not good. Sorry for any of our listeners named Orville or Wilbur. I'm sure it's a great family name or something, but
I would say Orville is worse because you can't shorten it. You can't shorten it. Like Wilbur, you just be Will, right? But Orville, how do you shorten Orville?
And it doesn't have a middle name to go by.
Yeah.
That's tough. So Orville's the worst.
Orville's the worst.
What about his brother? What was his name? Retchy?
Yeah, Reuchlin.
Reuchlin, Reuchlin. Reuchlin?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's not very good either.
Orville, right? Born 1871. The younger.
Mm-hmm. Is that all you were going with?
Yeah, that's all I was going with.
August 19th. We just passed by his birthday.
I didn't have the specifics, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So I wonder what the other kids did with their lives.
Apparently, they tried starting some of their own companies. They weren't nearly as successful, obviously.
It's hard to be.
I think he had a younger, the youngest child, I believe, died during childbirth, I read.
Always bringing us down.
Interestingly, neither one of them graduated from high school.
Oh, you're ruining my fun fact.
Sorry. Catherine is the only one that went to high school and went to college. The sister.
This is a dirty lie. You need to get your facts right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's a shock to all of our listeners that Orville and Wilbur did not go to college.
But they didn't even graduate high school.
Wilbur didn't get a high school diploma.
Oh, okay. Did I get that wrong?
Yes, and they're actually the only 2 of the 5 kids that didn't go to college. The other 3 all went to college.
Losers.
Yeah, losers, and that's why they didn't make anything of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
Again,
believe that?
kids, stop going to college.
Stop going to college. We support that. Anyways, moving back in time again, before high school. So we said Milton Wright was preaching and was on the road all the time, right? And he would bring back little toys and stuff for the kids.
Oh, you're going to tell the Toy Story,
yeah,
aren't you?
the Toy Story.
It's a good one.
Copyrighted. In 1878, he brought back a small model helicopter for the boys. It was made of cork and bamboo and paper and other floaty kind of stuff, and it was powered by a rubber band to twirl the blade. Twirl it, Luke.
Gum band or rubber band?
I say rubber band.
Okay.
Do you say gum
I
band?
think I say rubber band.
Is gum band a southern thing?
I think it's a
or-
southern thing.
Let us know, listeners, and write in. The model was based on a design by French aeronautical pioneer Alfonso Pinot.
Nailed it.
Thank you. So that kind of sparked their love of flight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even though they didn't immediately get into the whole flying thing, they eventually went back to that helicopter, and that's what spurred them on to be successful.
I like it.
So we said that Wilbur was kind of useless. He had made plans when it comes to college, that is.
Oh, you're going to tell this story?
I don't know. I guess
That's
so.
a bad one.
Yeah. So he made plans to attend the okay university of
Harvard.
Yale.
Oh, Yale, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Did you look into this?
I did, but not really well, apparently.
He made plans to attend Yale University after high school, but in the wintertime, there was an accident that changed his life forever. We shouldn't make light of this, I guess, but it did change his life forever. He was badly injured in an ice hockey game when another player's stick smashed him in the face.
Knocked out his front teeth.
Ugh, poor Wilbur. Not only is he named Wilbur, but now he's toothless and he can't go to college with a hockey injury.
Apparently, he was like crazy depressed.
Yeah.
Didn't graduate high school because he quit going to school and turned into like this recluse and just like hung out at the house and read books.
Is it a recluse or a recluse?
I think one's a deadly spider. I'm not sure. But apparently, and how terrible are the parents? No offense to, but how do you not force your kid to go to school? Like if your kid came home and said, "Oh, I'm not going to school because I don't feel like it,"
Because I don't have teeth.
I'd be like,
and I have a head injury.
I'd be like, Tufts, you're
well,
going.
It was back in like 1880 or something like that, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I was thinking you were going to say, why wasn't he wearing a helmet or something?
Yeah, you
of
think
that
he would have
sort.
invented hockey gear more than an airplane?
Right? After that, I would have.
Yeah.
Anyways, so moving forward in time a little bit, in 1889, the brothers started their own newspaper or newspapers. Did you see that?
Yep.
The West Side News was one of them. Wilbur edited the paper, which I think is interesting as he didn't have a high school education or teeth apparently. And Orville was the publisher. In addition to normal printing services, the brothers edited and published 2 short-lived local newspapers. So they also did like local publishing as well. So you could go up to their store and be like, "Yo, publish me something."
Yeah.
That's how you request stuff. And they also developed a little local reputation for the quality of their printing presses that they designed, built, and sold to other printers.
And the crazy thing at this point is these guys are in their like late teens, early 20s at this point. And that is bananas to me that they're making printing presses. They had their own newspaper for like 3 years or something like that. That's just how ambitious do you have to be and to like to have 2 of those in one family? Like I'm sure your brother is the ambitious one, and you're the low achiever, just like me with my brother. But to have 2 that are so ambitious to do that, that's like
really something.
It is.
Yeah.
Your brother's really something, James.
Good job, Greg. We're all proud of you. Thanks for being so ambitious. Wow. Well, I'm feeling a little bit down about myself. So you know what's going to pep me up?
What's that?
Taking a break for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume it's the Smithsonian, because they're all about the Wright Brothers, apparently.
They are all about the Wright Brothers, but that is the wrong guess.
Oh.
I'm going to just keep using that one over and over. We do not have a sponsor this week, Luke, but we do have some shout-outs. You want to hear them?
Shoot.
Mark A. says...
Oh, Marky Mark.
His full email. I love reading full emails to give them their credit. Send me a sticker. I really enjoy your podcast. So thanks, Mark.
I like that. It's concise.
It was. It
It's
really got to the
specific.
point. So, Mark, your stickers will be in the mail once I have envelopes. I actually just ordered Unprofessional Engineering
No, you
return
did
labels
not.
too. Yeah, tired of writing
How
those things out.
professional are we?
I know. Benjamin C. also wrote in. He likes our podcast because it's fun and still talks about things at a good level, which is
Aw.
nice. And he's a material scientist, so I feel
Nice.
like that kind of carries some weight as opposed to like my mom writing in and saying that.
Thank you, Benny and the
Yeah,
Jets. That's awesome.
Benny. And he's from the UK, so Benny and the Jets is like
That's
extra
yeah.
good. All right, but other than that, if you want a beautiful shout out like those two, why don't you write into unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Make sure you share. Make sure you listen. Reviews. 5
Yeah.
stars.
I think in the right order, it is subscribe, leave a review,
I don't even care if you listen. As long as you do those two
Email.
things, yeah.
and then listen.
Yeah. As long as you're doing the first two, I could care less. If you-
Exactly. All right. So moving on back to our friends, the Wright brothers. So we just mentioned that they had some newspaper stuff going on, right? They were building printing presses. Clearly, they're mechanically inclined,
Yes.
right? So after that, in 1892, just a few years later,
I love this.
do you?
I do.
Wilbur and Orville open a bike shop.
Because bikes were seriously like all the rage at this point. It was like,
That seems so weird, doesn't it? Like, they're just so commonplace. Like, everybody has a bike. Everybody knows how to ride a bike.
yeah, I think it was just, not everybody had a horse. Towns were developing and horses and carriages and
They
like
didn't
all
have
the
cars by then?
and cars and just and like getting around was just not easy. Cars were expensive, horses were difficult. And the idea of just jumping on a bike, and it was apparently like all the rage to have a bike at that point.
Yeah, it was. So it was all the rage. So they jumped on that trend and opened a bike shop, fixing up bicycles and selling their own designs as well. Because,
They're pretty sweet. I saw a picture.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't look. I should have. So they developed their own self-oiling bicycle wheel hub and installed a number of light machine tools in the shop. And the profits from the print shop as well as the bicycle operation was what eventually funded the Wright brothers' aeronautical experiments.
And their sister working in the background, keeping everything. She gets very little credit for anything, but she actually like did the books and the day-to-day stuff, and really was kind of like the backbone of some of their business dealings that she never gets the credit for.
I saw that she was kind of a participant in this stuff
well,
as well.
more than a
I left her
participant,
out
James.
because, again,
You're
she
terrible.
did it. Well, one, I'm terrible, and two, she doesn't get the credit she deserves. And I continued that trend. I'm sorry, Wright brother sister,
Catherine.
Was it
I
Catherine?
think it's Catherine.
Oh, okay. So anyways, during this time, the Wright brothers were following the research of German aviator Otto Lilienthal.
Nailed it.
So when this guy died, the German, in a glider crash, the brothers are like, you know what?
Let's keep doing this.
We're going to do that. Yeah. How
What?
does that make any sense? Dude goes and dies in a terrible glider accident, and they're like, we're going to pick up where he left off and start doing glider experiments on our own.
Yeah,
That just
like a
seems
bad
like
idea.
the worst. So the brothers eventually became successful with an airplane that would require wings to become successful. They realized that the wings would have to generate lift. Propulsion system would need to be used to move through the air, and they'd have to be able to control the flight of the aircraft, right? So Lilienthal, they figured out, had built wings capable of carrying him in flight, except, one time. And that was in poor taste, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was.
While the builders of the self-propelled vehicle were developing lighter and more powerful internal combustion engines. So they're like, sweet, we're already able to steal 2 out of 3 things.
Yep.
All we have to do is to be able to figure out how to control this. And then with their keen eye, Luke, their keen eye, they observed that birds angled their wings for balance and control, and they tried to emulate this, developing a concept that's apparently called wing warping. Did you see anything
I
about
did.
wing warping?
I did.
I thought that was interesting that it came from birds. So their first experiments of wing warping as a system, which is what they ended up calling it, was wing warping, was to make a small biplane kite. and it was flown in Dayton in the summer of 1899. So they were doing their initial testing on a kite to try and figure out if they were able to control the motion as they wanted to. So they discovered that they were able to do this, and the kite could climb and dive, and it could bank left and right. They were like, yes, we're set. We're going to make our first full-scale glider, and it's going to be super awesome. So they used this German dude's data to calculate the amount of wing surface that was required, and that way they could also estimate the lift for the amount of weight that it was going to take to lift this glider up, as well as with a person with the right amount of velocity. So here's kind of an interesting thing.
Shoot.
I don't know if you've ever been to Dayton or, the area.
Vaguely remember being there once or twice.
Relatively low winds, pretty flat terrain. Maybe not the best place to be taken off in a glider or a plane.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like ideal situation.
Certainly not a best place to be experimenting with this sort of stuff. So the Wright brothers went to the weatherchannel.com, I assume.
Yeah.
They checked out the U.S. Weather Bureau for a list of better places that would more fit their needs. And they selected beautiful Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
Outer Banks, right?
It's Outer Banks right there. And so why do they pick that? It offered really high average winds. If you've ever been there, it gets really windy. Really tall dunes from which to glide off of, and soft sand for landings, so you don't end up with like their friend Otto. So even if they crash, at least it's into soft sand, right? Ish.
You could still get pretty jacked up, I think.
Yeah. Fun fact, they actually built their own wind tunnel to figure out some of the problems that they were encountering.
Really?
Which I think is pretty advanced
I didn't see
stuff.
that.
Yeah.
That's very advanced.
Have you ever been down to the Outer Banks and enjoyed the lovely area?
No.
I went to a place called Kill Devil Hills, which
Ooh.
is just a few miles from here. But I went up to those dunes. Like, they have giant dunes that you can run around on and play and apparently test your gliders.
Okay.
It's a really nice area.
I like that.
You should go there.
I'll try it out.
Or not.
Yeah,
They have lighthouses.
Oh, okay, I'm there.
I knew you would.
got me.
So, anyways, they headed off to famous Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
So I have a fun fact for you.
I want to hear a fun fact.
So not only does Ohio, but North Carolina both take credit for the Wright brothers, which I think is pretty funny. And if you look at the coins, Ohio is where they developed and built some of their designs, like you just mentioned, Dayton, Ohio. In North Carolina, because of Kitty Hawk, it's where the first powered flight actually took place. So it's interesting, Ohio, they have the slogan, birthplace of aviation, and North Carolina uses the slogan, first in flight. So it's like they're one-upping each other.
Like we were the I feel like North Carolina wins.
I do too, because
this is where the flight happened.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be born anywhere.
Like, I feel like if Ohio, like, wanted to, like, stick it to them, they could be like, birthplace of aviation, that you wouldn't be able to fly in North Carolina if you didn't invent it here, but I don't think that would fit on a coin. It doesn't roll off the tongue either.
That's
a slogan.
like St. Mary's being like, we're the birthplace of unprofessional engineering, versus Pittsburgh that would be like, we're the home of the third most popular podcast in Pittsburgh. Exactly the same thing.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm still chapped about that.
Yes, you are chapped. But it's interesting. And I never... I've seen both of the coins, and they say, birthplace and first in flight. And
now I'm going to.
They both take credit for it. It's
Every
interesting.
quarter I look at, I'm going to look at to see. All right, before we move on with the rest of their amazing history and everything they've done... how about we take a break for this week's Luke's Rant?
Okay, so I'm keeping it related to flight, and this is the cost of airline tickets and what it costs to go places, and also those terrible videos that show people flying in first class and like how amazing it is, and it just, number one, I don't understand why tickets are so expensive. I
First class tickets or tickets in general?
Tickets in general, but first class in particular. I get you get some pretty decent amenities, But I just can't imagine, paying, $16,000 for a first class ticket to, Europe or to Asia or to, Australia or something like that. So I don't understand. I mean, we're talking the first flight occurred in 1903, and we haven't figured out a way since 1903 to make airline travel more affordable.
I feel like a lot of your rants revolve around how expensive stuff is.
It is, because I am the cheapest person like you've ever met. And, Google Flights, not sponsored, but we take it if you send it. Google Flights is the most amazing...
I've never even heard of this.
Oh, so you go to Google and you just do flights, and Google Flights brings up a calendar, and you choose where you're going, and it shows you the cheapest days to fly across all airlines. It's the easiest, most effective way to find super cheap flights.
But do you end up with like 19 layovers?
No, you can choose, preferred airlines. But yeah, so Google Flight, not sponsored, but again, I take a free ticket somewhere.
Anyone from Google listening?
Yeah.
How about you hook us up?
Hook us up.
Yeah.
But I just don't understand like the general cost of it. I mean, I get there's fuel and I get that there's all this stuff involved with it, but there's like
Flights made a lot of progress in that time too, Luke.
Yeah,
a lot of cost associated.
I know, but it still seems unattainable to. Like, I'm thinking about the sabbatical, right? Taking a family to Europe for a couple of weeks and just flights back and forth are costing like $6,000. It's like, are you kidding me?
Each?
Well, for all total, but even still, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry. Yeah, all my rants do relate to money.
They
Sorry.
do. All right. I guess moving on.
Yeah.
Because just a whole lot of angry
Fun
going
fact.
on over there. Fun fact. Let's
So
hear it.
speaking of money,
Talk about the coins again.
No, not the coins again. So, this is fun facts about the Wright Flyer. The Flyer cost less than $1,000, and this is in contrast to the $50,000 cost that the government gave to Samuel Langley for his man-carrying Great Aerodome project. So literally $1,000. So in 1903, when they built this thing for $1,000, it was equivalent to, maybe $28,000 is what it would cost to build this thing.
Yeah, get your act together, Boeing.
I know. It had a wingspan of 40.3 feet. It weighed 605 pounds and had a 12 horsepower motor on it that weighed 180 pounds.
Wow. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. For $1,000? That seems pretty good.
A deal.
But this was like their own money they were investing because
this was their printing press and bicycle shop money.
So that's equivalent to $28,000. I don't know if I'd be doing it.
Some people are very passionate about their projects. I wonder if they had Bishop money from their dad. Like, did he make money? I don't know.
I don't know.
So moving back in time a little bit from that plane, they added the rudder. That was the missing piece, right? So on December 17th of 1903, they succeeded in flying the first free controlled flight of a power-driven heavier-than-air plane.
It was really impressive, too.
It flew for 59 seconds. Is that what you're being impressed about? 852 feet, and it was an extraordinary achievement, apparently.
Well, the very first one was super bad. It was 12 seconds.
Yeah, they made 4 flights that day.
But the very first one was 12 seconds because my guess is they chickened out and were like, no.
Ah, this is scary.
Yeah, so my guess is the first one was 12 seconds and like 90 feet, and then the best was the fourth one, I'm guessing.
I'm guessing the fourth. So they actually had done between like 700 and 1,000 flights prior to that one for their testing. So that's kind of impressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hate is gonna hate, like you mentioned.
Hate is gonna hate.
Hate.
No one
Taylor
believed
Swift.
Them. I don't listen to them.
No. Okay. Yeah, nobody listened to them
Or believed them.
Yeah, nobody believed them. And then Wilbur was like, "Shut it, foos." That's what he said. That was exactly what. It's a quote. And he went off to Europe in 1908 to try and convince people. In France, they were pretty much receptive to him, so that was good. But
And interestingly, the U.S. government was totally poo-pooing because they were reaching out to the U.S. government like, hey, we want you to help fund this and we'll make planes for the government and blah, 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 blah. They didn't pay attention until France was like, ooh, this is interesting.
France was probably like, no, you can't fly. And Wilbur was like, yes, we can, in like a raised voice. And they were like, okay, I'm sorry. You know,
think?
we'll roll over and
There
surrender.
goes our whole French audience.
Yeah, they get beat on a lot. But they were much more willing to accept the Wright brothers' planes and claims of flight. So what really happened is that Wilbur made a whole bunch of public flights there. He gave rides to officials and journalists and statesmen and all these folks to like get them on his side and show them how cool things were. So in 1909, Orville joined his brother in Europe, and they became huge celebrities over there. And they were hosted by royals and all these other people, and they were constantly featured in the press. And so they just got like super famous over in Europe.
Like
which is,
Vin Diesel famous.
that's like being like unprofessional engineering famous in America, but it was still really pretty good, right?
I don't know why I said Vin Diesel.
I don't know either. He's so weird looking.
It is.
With his big bald head. He's pretty nice guy though, I think. Anyways, so they started to sell planes in Europe before returning to the U.S., and they became very wealthy businessmen, filing contracts for airplanes in Europe and the U.S. So, fun fact, in 2007, while they were still over there, they agreed to build the first U.S. Army airplane for $25,000. Did you see that?
They finally started paying attention after the French were...
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, wait, we better get in on this.
Yeah.
If it's good enough for everyone else. That would be about $680,000 in today dollars. That's a pretty good amount of money to
Not too
spend
shabby.
for a plane. And the Army required it to be able to travel 125 miles at 40 miles per hour with a pilot and a passenger. So I think that's like a real step up, considering their first flight lasted 59 seconds, and now all of a sudden they're traveling that far?
I got a terrible, not so fun fact for you.
Go ahead.
September 17th, 1908. Thomas Selfridge, U.S. Army lieutenant, has to go for a ride with Wilbur. The U.S. government requires it as a part of the demonstration. Straps him in. Plane crashes. Lieutenant Selfridge dies. Wilbur
walks away?
No. He was jacked. He I saw like this vintage photograph. He had like a neck brace on and like all these bandages all over him. He was pretty like they didn't think he was gonna fly or walk again, kind of thing. He ended up okay, and he ended up flying again. But major setback. But even with that, the U.S. government was like,
I think it was a lieutenant setback.
They still proceeded, and but yeah, poor guy. It's like,
yeah, that is too bad.
because I'm sure like his boss, I'm sure like General Custard was like, hey you Selfridge, get in the plane. I'm sure this guy didn't volunteer for it.
Yeah,
General Custard tells you to do something, you do it.
That's true. That's what they say. That's too bad. Shouldn't make light of it.
It is. I'm sorry.
So they had to make this plane for the Army. Apparently, they got one that worked a little bit better than that one.
Yeah.
And they got fun fact, they got a $5,000 bonus for going 2.5 miles per hour above the required speed.
Ooh.
So that was pretty sweet cash money right there, right?
So good.
Go ahead. No, you have something good to say?
Yeah, so this is going back a little bit, but when they were building the Flyer one or the Wright Flyer one, the very first version, they were working with all these different automotive manufacturers to try to get an engine that would suit their purposes, and they couldn't. Like, they were all way too heavy, way too big. So what they did was they actually had one of their machine shop guys. They designed from scratch the engine out of aluminum. Ooh. And apparently at the time, I guess that happened, but it was really uncommon.
Yeah.
So it was an aluminum block engine. It didn't have a fuel pump. They used a gravity feed to eliminate the need for a fuel pump. And there were some other pieces where they eliminated them by using gravity and different things like that. But they actually designed the very first engine for themselves.
That's impressive.
And some guy in the machine shop was like, on the CNC machine.
Is that how the CNC machine works?
Yeah, he was running a little Delcam, I'm sure.
It must have been. Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Huh. All right, so moving on towards the end of their lives. How about that?
Yeah.
So this is kind of interesting. Wilbur and Orville always took shared credit when it was public facing, right?
Yeah.
We're the Wright brothers. But behind the scenes, A lot of
backstabbing.
Yeah, a lot of backstabbing, division of labor kind of stuff. So in November of 1909, the Wright Company, which was incorporated with Wilbur as president, Orville was just one of the measly vice presidents. So he wasn't even the only vice president. There were 2 vice presidents. And then there was a board of trustees. So the Wright Company established a factory in Dayton. So I guess Ohio gets a little bit more of a claim, right? And a flying field and flight school at the Huffman Prairie. So among the pilots, this is kind of neat, was Henry H. Hap Arnold, who would rise as commander of the U.S. Army Air Forces in World War II.
That's kind of cool.
You know, they were helping out the Army. It all comes back to war all the time.
It does.
Not so fun fact.
Shoot.
Shortly after, Wilbur dies. Not of the diabetes like Wilford Brimley. Is that his name? Wilford Brimley?
Yeah.
But of typhoid fever.
Yeah.
Did his mom die of typhoid as well, or did you just say
no,
that?
No, she did. I'm pretty sure it was typhoid.
So upon Wilbur's death,
He was
Orville-
only 45.
Yeah, he was a youngster.
That's like a year older than I am.
Good luck, man. Everybody get your unprofessional engineering in while you can. Oh, boy. At least you probably don't have to worry about typhoid.
I don't think.
Yeah. So Wilbur takes over the Wright Company after his brother dies. He's probably happy about that. And he runs it until 1915, so not really that much longer, where then he sold it off, but he really continued to like stay active in the aviation field, if that makes sense. He won the 1913 Collier Trophy for his work with an automatic stabilizer for aircraft. He worked in consulting for World War I. I'll go back to war again. And he helped the Dayton Wright Company plan the production of foreign aircraft designs as well. And then I can't remember what we said. Back then, I think it's like 1948 or something like that, he died as well.
Yeah, he died at the age of 76 years old.
That's way better.
Yeah, much better. I'd be happy with 76. Even nowadays, I'd be happy with 76.
76 is an okay run. I'm hoping to get closer to like an 85,
Ooh,
I think.
You better
I'm feeling
start
pretty
taking better
aggressive.
care of
I
yourself.
know, I really should. I haven't exercised in so long.
You got to quit the alcohols. And...
I don't drink that much anymore.
Oh, look at
I
you
mean,
maturing.
I mean, as much.
Relatively speaking.
Right. Okay. So hopefully everybody found the Wright brothers rather interesting. I know that I did.
I did, and I think that they probably deserve a little more credit than I think they got back then. I think it's, coming around. There's been some biographies and different books written recently. The Smithsonian gives them a lot of props,
Yeah.
but yeah, I liked it.
I liked it as well. If you liked it, email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com and let us know. Or maybe go on iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a review. That would show how much you really liked
Yeah, and
it.
send us some topics too. If
Send us
you
some
like this kind of
topics.
stuff, give us some ideas.
Absolutely. Until next time.
See ya.